So I will call the meeting number 5 to order of the Standing Committee on Industry, Science and Technology. The purpose of today's meeting is to discuss some committee business. We have circulated a calendar of business to all members that you have in front of you. So the purpose of today is to go over some business items that we have, including some scheduling of upcoming meetings. So with that, as you see, Thursday's meeting is allocated towards the supplementary estimates B. So we will have Minister Joly joining us on Thursday for the supplementary estimates B. There was a request for Minister Baines as well to present. Unfortunately, he's not available on Thursday. He has offered up availability, I believe, on March 12th, if I'm correct, which is a Thursday. So on that note, I want to verify with the committee if it is the will of the committee to have Minister Baines present on, I believe, and I'm just checking with my colleague, Mr. Assassi, on March 12th. Is that correct?
As I understand, Ms. Chair, there is talk now of actually tabling the main estimates. So should it be the will of the committee, I think it would make more sense for us to revert back to our original schedule, which was on the 10th and 12th of March to do Mr. Massey's study. And then once the mains have been tabled, to actually invite the minister and his top officials.
So I open up that proposal for any comments, questions of the members of the committee to have Minister Baines not present the supplementary estimates on March 12th, rather wait until the mains have been tabled and then invite the Minister Baines to appear to discuss the main estimates. Any comments, questions?
So what would we be doing on Thursday then?
So this Thursday, the 27th, we have supplementary estimates B, but with Minister Joly, because you had asked for 2 ministers?
Yeah. Okay.
Is that acceptable? That works. Perfect. Okay. And then, as you know, we have a riding week the following week. Upon return, the plan is to have the short study that was proposed and accepted by the committee from Mr. Massey with respect to fraudulent calls and scammers. So the goal is to have those 2 meetings that week allocated for that study. Because it was a shorter study, we can make sure we can line up witnesses and so on. So with respect to that, I'm just going to check with the clerk to verify timelines for witnesses and so on. Mr. Massey, do you have a comment?
Just, and then I don't know if there's time after that, if we need any time, if we have any recommendations or anything along that line. So I have some witnesses to submit as well too, but just throw that out there, but I don't want it to interfere with other committee business also. So.
Okay. So what we will do is, when would it be best for you to receive the witnesses, the witness list and suggested timeline? Would it be best perhaps before the end of this week so that you have some time to work on that?
Yeah, that would be great.
So can we put aside perhaps, would Friday 9 a.m. work for everybody to submit witnesses to the clerk? Is that acceptable? Perfect. So I'll ask that you please submit your witnesses for that study to the clerk by 9 a.m. this Friday, the 28th of February. That will give the clerk time to line up folks. Mr. Massey?
Not to be too particular, can we make it Friday at 10? Just because I know that if we had a problem at 9 a.m. is when staff come in, and if somebody was late or if there's a problem. I know it's a particular thing. It's more related to just an extra hour in case somebody needs it when the first order of business.
I'm fine with that. Is everyone fine with that? Just don't mention to my staff that people come in only at 9.
Yeah. Well, my one staff, she has to get into childcare, and so she comes in at 9:10 and so if we had a hiccup, then
not a problem.
She's here well after her hours, that's for sure.
So we'll say 10 a.m. on Friday?
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. For the other study that we did, for the press release. So, as you know, we adopted a motion for additional study following that one. We're just waiting for draft copies of the press release that we wanted to issue with respect to that study that will help us in terms of announcing the study, as well as lining up witnesses, submissions of written briefs and so on. So we're just waiting for some copies to be circulated for the committee's consideration. Mr. Massey?
Sorry to be a pain this morning.
Never.
For our researchers and analysts, how much time would they need for like a small, short, like kind of summary of the fraud study that we get? I'm just wondering if we are able to get a consolidated report on that, and perhaps if we do have any recommendations, if there's a half a meeting we need or something small to deal with that. I'd just like to see something come out of what we do on that, so it could be distributed to the public or and that. And I was hoping our analysts might be able to at least compress a small report. Knowing their background, I would consider that quite valuable.
That's what I understood, that there would be a report regarding the fraud calls study. Given the timing with the other study that you wanted to have a report that would be at least that you start review a report in June, I'm sure the chair is going to discuss it, but you would probably need to dedicate the April meetings to the telecommunications study. And once you're done with those hearings, you would be ready to review the report on fraud calls. So I think this should fit together nicely.
Perfect.
And given it's going to be 2 meetings at most, it should be a short report. So I don't think it's going to, I think you're going to be able to wrap all of this up in May.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Now, so you have in front of you the press release. If you'd like to have a moment to review it, and we'll open up the floor for comments, questions. And we'll also, we just go over the schedule in terms of slotting in when the study will happen. Ms. Rempel-Garner?
Do you need a motion to approve it?
I'd like people to have a chance to read it, and then
Sure.
if we could have a motion to
that's
approve.
good.
Thank you. Mr. Erskine-Smith?
Yeah, I mean, one small change is I would say launch a new study on the affordability and accessibility of telecommunications in Canada, and then examine several aspects, including 5G expansion, not including accessibility and affordability there as a subtopic, make it as the overarching topic. The second thing I would say is March 20th, 2020 is, I would say, an unnecessarily short period of time to submit a brief if this study is to extend well beyond March 20th. I expect us to have witnesses attending before us into April, and so I don't know why we would set such an early deadline for briefs. I would say, I don't know what the deadline should be, but I would say even end of April would be fine by me, because I don't expect us to wrap this up in a short time. And the last thing I would say, and I think it would be helpful if the analysts could provide us with a list of proposed witnesses by Friday, March 6th, and then we could then discuss that the following week and hammer out at least a preliminary set of witnesses that we would invite. But it would be helpful to have some sort of 2 smart people thinking about it before I think about it.
Okay, one moment. Okay. So your proposal is to have them further, what would be your, my apologies.
I suggested just randomly the end of April, because I think that's more, that seems like a lot of time, and I think we'll still be dealing with it at that point. But I'm open to suggestion.
The committee wanted
to clarify the reason why we put the deadline a little shorter than when the actual witnesses would be is because to give the chance for the analysts to actually collect all of the submissions, make sure they're in both official languages and so on, because we have such a short compressed calendar, and to make sure that we finished in time for a June submission. So the thought was that we would make sure that we have, before we actually start seeing all the witnesses, the written briefs. But if it's the will of the committee to put that a little later, it's the will of the committee. So if you could.
Or how about no deadline? I mean, I just don't see the rush in setting a deadline. I don't think we'll get a lot of people submitting briefs by March 20th if we send this out now. And I would prefer that, individuals and organizations have more of an opportunity to submit something. But we can also invite those we want as witnesses. So it's not the biggest deal to me. But I would think a later date makes a bit more sense. We're not going to start this study until when? March 24th, right? So I don't think we need all the briefs in before we even start it. But.
Mrs. Rumpel-Garner?
Maybe just as a way to make sure that the analysts have time to do work, like we could, at a future committee business, once we've done like 4 or 5 meetings on this, we can, take half an hour and kind of just say like, okay, who else do we need to hear from, just so that the analysts have some direction on where we're going, so it's not just a big rush at the end. And that's fine with me then. And also, point of order, Madame Chair, your pin is about to fall off.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Would sometime in April, earlier in April or mid-April be sufficient timing, or March 20th was set for a particular?
So I'll ask the analysts who would be the one dealing with their work.
No, if it's early or mid-April, it would be fine. It's just that in past studies, it happened often that we would get the deadline at like the last day of the study when we start drafting the report,
Yeah,
and then
of
it's
course,
a lot, like everything always arrives almost the last day that we have the deadline, so.
Okay, so in that case, then why don't we say something like April 9th, which gives some more time, and I don't think would get in the way of, but I appreciate I do things at the last minute too, so it makes sense to set an earlier date than the end of our study.
Okay, great. Any other comments with respect to the press release? Si vous avez des commentaires concernant le communiqué de presse.
Any comments about the press release with the amending to the 9th of April for the deadline for submissions?
A motion to adopt the press release. Madame Rumpel-Garner?
Sure, with the proposed change. Great.
Perfect. All in favor? Perfect. Thank you.
When is that going to go out?
So
You'll just send a notice to the committee?
so this will be sent out in the next few days, and a notice will be sent out, so that way if members would like to share this amongst their networks to make sure that it gets as much coverage as possible, especially with respect to witnesses and lining them up and so on. Okay, thank you. The other one? Okay, so you also have in front of you another press release with respect to the study that we will be conducting on March 10th and 12th. Sorry, we were a little bit backwards here. You don't have that one?
Yes, that was just me.
Okay. We will circulate that. While that is being circulated, I wanted to verify with this committee if a briefing from the analysts in advance of our next study would be appropriate. Obviously, a written brief can be prepared, and I believe we were looking at that.
So we'll have time to prepare a background paper on the telecom study, not so much time for the fraud calls, but we'll be providing briefing notes before both meetings, and you're going to have some background information in that.
Perfect. Okay. There are some members of the committee that are much more versed on the dossier than others, so we want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to be briefed up prior to the commencement of witnesses.
La traduction se rend pas. Juste pour être sûr.
Unfortunately, I'm not hearing the translation.
Le micro était pas. Merci beaucoup.
Ça fonctionne?
On vous écoute.
You're being listened to.
Okay. So my apologies, they're going to be circulating copies momentarily.
I can also read it.
What I can do in the interim, I can read. It's very short. So in English, on February 20th, 2020, the Standing Committee on Industry, Science and Technology, in brackets the committee, adopted a motion to study the influx of fraud calls in Canada, including robocalls, ghost calls, and spam calls. The committee will also examine the successes and failures of the national do not call list and outline the stir shaken measures that will be implemented there's a typo here. In September 2020. You can also support the work of the committee by submitting a brief. Brief must not exceed 1,000 words and must be sent no later than 13th of March 2020 to indu@parle.gc.ca. For more information about this study, please contact INDU's website. So essentially inviting folks. Mr. Massey, I'm going to ask you if your thoughts on the 13th of March, given we're going to have the 10th and the 12th of March. So would the 13th of March be adequate so that we can make sure that all submissions are in?
Sounds fine to me. I would defer to the analysts in terms of what, they're the ones that get kind of the bulk of the action here that needs to be.
Thank you, Mr. Massey. In this case, we'll have plenty of time. So receiving briefs for March 13 is perfectly doable.
Okay, good. That sounds good.
Perfect. Okay. So are we in agreement, or would you like to wait to receive the copy? It's going to be circulated momentarily. So I'll just let you have a copy of it in front of you, and then I'll ask for someone for a motion to approve the press release.
I just seen another typo.
So there's a few little grammar and editing that need to be done on them, but if I could have someone move. Mr. Massey?
Authorization to fix grammar and typos.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Oh, sorry, Mr. Drishin.
I'm just curious about the wording. The two different versions that we have, they sound a lot different. So it says you can also support the work of the committee by submitting a brief, and explains that. In the other one that we just did, the wording is different. Are we going to be consistent? I mean, it's not a big deal, but the one sort of a little more folksy than the other one. You can also support this work by submitting a brief, and the other one says to support this week, the committee asks Canadians to submit a brief. I mean, which I don't care. I mean, the next one we might have a different story about how it is. Are we going to be?
Do you prefer the Foxy version or the more formal one?
I don't care. I just note that they're different.
Okay.
So the first one seemed logical. We were talking to have Canadians submit a brief. The other, a little less so.
So in terms of professionalism, perhaps the first one.
I think the wording on the first one was a little bit more professional than the other.
So do I have, yes, Ms. Lambropoulos?
Sorry, let's finish with this one first, and I'll say what I have to say after.
So do I have a motion to approve with the amended using the same language as the previous press release? Mr. Massey? Okay. All in favor? Thank you. Madame Lambropoulos.
I know we already approved this one, but for the previous press release, for the short version, would we be able to include the committee launches a new study on telecommunications, accessibility, and affordability, like in the short version, just so people know that that's what we're focusing on in the study? Because I think that Nathaniel switched the wording in the long version. Would we be able to make it reflect in the short version as well?
So because we've already voted on this, it would require unanimous consent to go back to, do we have approval of the committee to go back to the first press release that we just approved, just to add accessibility and affordability? Is that correct in the short version?
Yeah.
Do I have approval of the committee?
Sorry, Madam Chair, I need to, because this is meant for Twitter, so I need to know how
many. Monsieur Lemire?
Considérez que c'était pour la fluidité de la.
Yes, it seemed to be to make the sentence a little more fluid, but I have no opposition to it whatsoever.
In the press, in the long version. So I think
Well, the reason why, so just to explain, the short version is literally what would go out on Twitter. So social media. So if there is enough characters to include affordability and accessibility, if it's the will of the committee, we can do that. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Perfect. Got it. Okay. So I don't have any other business unless someone brings. Do you have anything? With respect to the telecom study, not the fraud study, the telecom study, would the committee be interested in having we're going to have a written brief, a backgrounder. Would the committee be interested in having a briefing from the department? Okay, thank you. We will see if we can line that up for March 24th. So that way, before we see witnesses. Thank you. And, do you have anything else?
The only other thing would
Oh,
be,
Mr. Erskine-Smith, yes?
in terms of, I had asked the analysts if we get a list of proposed witnesses for March 6th, I think. And then I guess just make sure that we set some time aside on the 10th or 12th to discuss witnesses and hammer out, or we have a subcommittee meeting to do so. But it would be good to, again, March 24th will come up on us pretty quick, and if we don't have witnesses lined up, we should make sure that there's some timeline in place, that we've got a deadline for witnesses on that front too.
Okay, so your suggestion is to use some time between, on the 10th and or the 12th or would you prefer?
Or just now set a deadline to say, get our witness, like post March 6th, but get witnesses in for at least a preliminary. It doesn't have to be a final cutoff, but at least we've got witnesses that we're proposing that we have a calendar to build out by, I don't know, say March 11th or March 12th.
Okay. Madame Rempel-Garner?
I like that. And maybe what we could do, because we're starting on the 24th, right? Could we have like maybe half an hour at the end of the meeting on the 5th, like, or just like, it doesn't have to be a hard date of May, like somewhere within the first week of May where we just sort of regroup after a few meetings and say like, okay, do we need more witnesses? That sort of stuff. Maybe we could do is like just sort of like a soft list, and with understanding that we might there might be a desire to invite more down the road. And also, I guess I would ask too, do we need to talk about a formal travel submission today? Because that'll inform this as well too.
Okay. So I just want to double check. We had allocated 8 meetings towards this study, so that brings us to the 5th of May.
Okay, sorry, I didn't count properly.
If we are starting, in fact, on the 24th.
Okay, and so what was being proposed for the witness deadline?
We have a proposal for Mr. Erskine-Smith for...
I set an initial soft sort of deadline. Well, I was thinking if the analyst got us a proposed list of witnesses for the 6th, then sometime the following week we could have a deadline where we get back to here are the witnesses that we want to prioritize, and then we could revisit it end of April or whatever the case might be.
Okay.
So your proposal is to have Mr. Erskine-Smith a preliminary list of witnesses submitted to the clerk on March 6th?
No. That the analyst would get us a list of witnesses using their research that would be relevant to this committee. We would then have a few days to look it over, and maybe by March 12th that we would have a proposed list of witnesses that we would submit. There's no magic to it. March 10th, 11th, 12th, I don't really have a strong view of it. It's not going to take too long, I don't think, to identify the key ones from the analyst list.
Okay. Is that acceptable? So the goal is that we receive the week of the 3rd, sometime at the end of the week of the 3rd, potential list of witnesses from the analysts for review the week of the 10th with a deadline of Friday, March 12th for members of the committee to submit formal witnesses that they would like invited to, I'm looking at the 12th, Friday the 13th, that we submit to the clerk our witness list to line up for those meetings starting the 24th. Is that correct?
If that's sufficient time to get everyone in place, then yeah, I think that would be a good schedule.
Okay. Is that acceptable to the committee?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Mrs. Rempel-Garner, you had a question with respect to the draft letter of intent for travel and corresponding budget, if you'd like.
Is there anything that you need from us today, or when do we need to revisit that again?
I turn to the clerk.
Yeah, basically, the committee already agreed to submit a preliminary travel request. If there was intention of changing the locations of the destinations, you could revisit it today, but other than that, no, there's nothing to do at this time.
So then, like, I guess the next step would be, like, if there was preliminary interest, then it would come back to us through liaison, and then we'd need to talk about it.
Exactly, the
Okay.
liaison subcommittee, they would invite us to submit a fully budgeted proposal.
Okay.
Do we have a sense of when that letter of intent to travel will be prepared?
Yeah, it's
I know it's been a
no, it's actually it's not us. The liaison committee has yet to be formed, so it still has to form. Then it has to create its subcommittee. So once it exists,
we have time.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll be
Perfect. Okay. So with that, I open the floor if there's any other business that members would like to bring forward. And verify with the analyst or the clerk if there's anything else that you need. No?
Maybe one thing?
Yep, certainly.
If I may. I just want to be clear again about expectations regarding the telecom study, because there were mention of catching on the 5th of May to see if there should be additional witnesses. In order for us to give you a report that is translated both official languages by the end of May, so that you can review starting June and hopefully table before the summer, we're really working with the 8 meetings that you've assigned for this, and then after that, immediately we need to start drafting. So I'm sorry that's the support that's the support we can offer you for that. I wish we could do more, but I think that realistically that's what we can offer. So that's it.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? Yes, Madame Lampopoulos?
I thought the point of early submissions by witnesses or by people who wanted to just submit briefs was so that it can start earlier, and so that we can potentially add whatever we find out in our travel and whatever we wanted to add to the study later on in May. Was that not a possibility? Would we not be able to add to whatever it is that we studied, or recommendations or whatever before?
So there are sort of 3 parts that go into the study. The first part is written submissions. Well, not first, but one part is written submissions. Second part is witness testimony, which we're hoping will go over the course of the 8 meetings, starting March 24th, ending at the end of April. And of course, if allowed, the actual travel, what we hear when we travel, if authorized. So all those 3 parts will form part of the report. The idea of traveling, the thoughts were possibly in May, because we'll have finished seeing the witness testimony, and during that time, the written testimony written submissions have been done. So while we're traveling, that can also be done. So it was all working sort of in parallel. But again, this can be revisited. But in order to make the deadline of submitting a report and tabling that in June, we were kind of stuck on this sort of very tight timeline. I'm not sure if that's clear. Okay. Any further questions, comments? No? Seeing that there's no other business before the committee, do I have a motion to adjourn? Adjourned.
There we go.
And, okay, so there